The Grand Blackwood Hotel stood tall on a hill overlooking the town. It was old. It was quiet. The silence was heavy, filled with secrets.
I work the night shift. I like the quiet, or I thought I did.
The lobby was dark. Shadows danced on the walls. The old clock ticked slowly. Each tick sounded like a heartbeat. Sarah imagined the hotel was alive. It breathed in the silence. It watched her with empty eyes.
I often feel a chill. It isn't the cold, it's a feeling, like something is watching.
Sarah would glance over her shoulder. No one was there, but the feeling stayed. One night a man arrived. He was tall and thin. His eyes were dark and deep. He introduced himself as Mr. Bennett.
I checked the register. He had booked room 307.
Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. Room 307 was a bad place. It had a reputation. Guests often complained about strange noises, cold spots, and the feeling of being watched.
I tried to warn Mr. Bennett, but the words wouldn't come out.
He smiled, a strange, sad smile. He took the key and walked towards the elevator. His footsteps echoed in the quiet hall. The night was quiet, too quiet. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. She felt a growing unease, like a storm brewing in the stillness of the night. The old building creaked and groaned. The wind howled outside.
I could have sworn I heard whispers. They seemed to come from the walls themselves. They spoke of fear and sorrow.
Sarah tried to ignore them. She focused on her work, but the whispers grew louder. They seemed to be calling out to her, beckoning her towards room 307. Suddenly the phone rang. Sarah jumped. Her heart pounded in her chest. She took a deep breath and answered.
It's me, Mr. Bennett. Shadows. They're moving. Eyes are watching me from the darkness. The mirror. Please help.
His voice was shaky, filled with terror. He spoke quickly, his words tumbling over each other. Then the line went dead.
I slammed the phone down. A wave of dread washed over me. I knew I had to check on Mr. Bennett. I had to face the horror of room 307. The door's ajar. What could have happened here? Why is it open? Did someone leave in a hurry, or is someone still inside?
Sarah stood before room 307, her heart pounding in her chest. She had been here before, but something felt different this time. The number on the door seemed to loom larger, more ominous. A cold breeze seeped out as she pushed the door open, sending a shiver down her spine. It was as if the room itself was exhaling, releasing a breath it had been holding for years. The room was dark and silent, an abyss of shadows and stillness. The silence was so profound that it seemed to have a weight of its own, pressing down on her. She flicked on the light, and the room was bathed in a dim yellow glow. The light was weak, barely piercing the darkness that clung to the corners.
Mr. Bennett? Mr. Bennett, are you here? Her voice echoed back to her, sounding small and uncertain in the vast emptiness.
But Mr. Bennett was gone. The room was empty, but something wasn't right. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The air felt heavy, oppressive. It was as if the room was alive, watching her, waiting for her to make a move. And the mirror hanging on the wall seemed to pulse with an eerie light. It was an unnatural glow, almost as if the mirror had a heartbeat of its own.
This mirror, it feels so strange. Why does it seem to be calling to me? What secrets does it hold?
Sarah cautiously approached the mirror, her steps slow and deliberate. Each step felt like a journey, taking her deeper into the unknown. It was old and tarnished, its surface marred by the passage of time. The glass was cloudy, obscuring the reflection within. As she peered into the glass, she noticed a figure standing behind her. It was a shadow, indistinct and menacing, lurking just beyond the edge of her vision. A tall, shadowy figure with eyes that burned like hot coals. The eyes were piercing, filled with an intensity that seemed to see right through her. She felt a chill run down her spine as she realized she was not alone.
What is that? Is this some kind of trick?
Sarah gasped and spun around, her mind racing with confusion and terror. She had been alone in the room, or so she thought. The sudden appearance of the shadowy figure in the mirror was beyond her comprehension, but there was no one there. The room was as empty as it had been moments before, the silence almost deafening. She felt a chill run down her spine. She turned back to the mirror, her eyes wide with fear and disbelief. The reflection showed the same room, But the shadowy figure remained, its presence undeniable. The shadowy figure was still there, closer now. It seemed to be moving towards her, its form becoming more distinct with each passing second. She could make out the contours of its face, the hollow eyes staring back at her. It reached out from the mirror, its long, bony fingers scraping against the glass. The sound was like nails on a chalkboard, sending shivers through her entire body. She could feel the coldness of its touch, even though it hadn't yet broken through the barrier.
No, this can't be real. This has to be a nightmare. Wake up, Sarah, wake up!
Sarah stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, her fight-or-flight response kicking in. But where could she run? The room felt like a trap, the walls closing in on her. She could feel the cold emanating from the mirror, seeping into her bones. It was an unnatural cold, one that seemed to drain the warmth from her very soul. Her breath came out in visible puffs, the temperature dropping rapidly. The eyes of the figure locked onto hers. They were empty, void of any humanity, yet they held a power that she couldn't resist. She felt as if she was being pulled into the mirror, her willpower weakening with each passing moment. She was trapped in its gaze, unable to look away. It was as if the figure was reaching into her mind, probing her deepest fears and insecurities. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly helpless.
Help! Somebody please! Is anyone there? I need help!
She tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. It was as if the very air had been sucked out of the room, leaving her in a vacuum of silence. Her throat burned with the effort, but it was futile. The mirror began to glow brighter, the light becoming blinding. It was a harsh, unnatural light that seemed to pierce through her, illuminating every corner of the room. She shielded her eyes, but the light was relentless. The shadowy figure stepped out of the mirror, its form solidifying as it entered the room. It was no longer just a reflection, it was real, tangible, and it was coming for her. She could see the malevolent intent in its eyes, and she knew she had to act fast if she wanted to survive. The next morning, Sarah was gone. The only evidence she had been there at all was the key to room 307, lying on the floor outside the open door. The room was empty, the mirror hung on the wall, its surface reflecting the empty room. But if one looked closely, very closely, they could almost make out a faint image. The terrified face of a young woman, trapped within its depths.
This can't be right. Where did she go?
The Grand Blackwood Hotel stood silent once more. Its secrets remained, locked within its walls. And room 307 awaited its next unsuspecting guest. The Grand Blackwood Hotel continued to stand on the hill, a solitary figure against the twilight sky. Its silhouette was a familiar sight to the townsfolk, yet it evoked a sense of unease. A silent sentinel against the passage of time, the hotel had witnessed countless seasons change, its walls absorbing the whispers of history, but its silence was a facade, a deceptive calm that masked the turmoil within. The empty rooms and deserted hallways held secrets that were better left undisturbed, a mask hiding a chilling truth, a truth that was felt by those who dared to stay within its walls. The air was thick with an unseen presence, a lingering dread that clung to every corner. The hotel was not just old, it was haunted. Stories of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena were whispered among the townsfolk, each tale more terrifying than the last.
Did you hear? They say the spirits of those who perished within its walls still roam the corridors. Another one vanished from room 307. They say it's haunted. The room had a reputation, a dark history that no one could ignore.
Whispers of Sarah's fate spread through the town. She was the latest victim, her disappearance adding to the hotel's sinister legend. Some dismissed it as a story, a fabrication to explain the unexplainable. They scoffed at the idea of ghosts and curses, a legend to scare children, they said, a tale to keep them from wandering too far from home. But others knew the truth. They had seen things, felt things that defied logic and reason. They knew the evil that lurked within the hotel walls. The peeling wallpaper and crumbling plaster were just the surface of a deeper, darker reality.
I don't care what people say. I've felt it, the cold, the fear. It's real. I know there's something wrong with that place. It's not just a building, it's alive, in a way that defies understanding.
The Grand Blackwood stood alone, a monument to forgotten times and lost souls. Its windows, like eyes, seemed to watch the world with a knowing gaze. Its shadows stretched long and dark, a reminder of the darkness that lay within. The moonlight only served to accentuate its eerie presence. It was a place of whispers and shadows, where the past and present intertwined in a dance of the macabre. A place where the living dared not tread, for fear of what they might encounter. The silence was oppressive, the darkness almost tangible, and the dead found no peace. Their restless spirits wandered the halls, seeking solace that would never come. The Grand Blackwood Hotel was more than just a building. It was a gateway to the unknown, a place where the line between the living and the dead was blurred.